Hey there folks, I'm on this video, and a while ago the WRC announced that Rally Sardinia would be a 48-hour event, starting on the Friday afternoon and finishing on the Sunday afternoon with the power stage. Now, I've seen people talking about this all over the internet, and in particular the why do we have to have a Sunday afternoon power stage, and it got me thinking about 5 things that the WRC could do, some of which they do already, some of which they very nearly did, that could change the format. And the first one is rally sprints. Now, if you know the term rally sprint, it's probably because you're a rallying nerd. Rally sprints are typically single venue events. They're quite common in Scandinavia, though they do exist in other parts of the world. I believe Norway and Sweden have quite popular championships for it, and I think Finland does as well, with standout events which are available in rallying games such as RBR as a mod. In fact, it wouldn't be something new to the WRC though. In 2020, during the pandemic, Rally Germany, Rally Deutschland, very nearly ended up being one of these single venue events. Germany, historically, was one where each day was quite different. The idea was going to be there would be a closed environment event, purely based out of the Baumholder military complex. Panzerplatte. Now, I think that could be something that would be really cool. I mean, we sort of had it with Rally Monza, though Rally Monza also went out to the mountains for a few stages. And I think it would be a good way to get the fans involved, have it in a single venue, have it somewhere that's accessible, and especially if you've got a network of a lot of roads, Panzerplatte being a brilliant example of it. The Baumholder military complex has had whole single day events before, and you can host whole rallies, especially with the amount of configurations you could do for it. I think this would be something that would be really cool to see in the WRC, and especially now that we're looking at things such as bonus points for the time over a Sunday. You've got the power stage, the JWRC hands out stage win points. Why not also look at this as a potential format for it? A second one that we could do would be endurance events. Now, in the past, the Safari Rally was this kind of endurance event. In 2002, it had over 1,000 kilometers of stages on its itinerary. The shortest one was 73.6 kilometers. It was originally meant to be 12 stages, but one of them was later cancelled, meaning that the actual running length, I think, was about 900 kilometers. But still, they had 100 kilometer plus stages, and yeah, I think that'd be something cool to look at, especially with this freedom in format, because what it means is you don't have to hit 300 kilometers, which is an arbitrary unit that F1 does. Basically, I'm saying don't need to be like F1 all the time. Now, I don't think we should do 1,000 kilometers. I think that in the modern age, it's quite untenable without massive investments in safety and security, and you have to remember these safari events were occasionally competed on open roads. For the sake of safety, there needs to be closed stages, but who's to say that we can't have, people running through tracks in deserts? I know there have been talks of a Saudi Arabia event. You could use some of the stages that were in the Dakar. You could do something similar in Latin America with some of those Dakar stages. I think that that would be a really good investment for the WRC. Another one, and this is something we already have on the calendar but we could potentially lose next year, is multinational events. The CER is obviously the greatest example of this. The first rally that took place in 3 different countries, but the WRC has had these stages and sometimes events that go through different countries as well. Rally Poland, for the longest time, had stages in Lithuania because Mikołajki and Białystok are up near that border with Lithuania, and with the EU you're able to do this. Even something that you could do without the EU. Sweden, quite notably the Hof Finskog stage, I believe, which is the one that's in WRC, had stages that were in Norway. I think when we had Rally Norway, correct me if I'm wrong, we had routes that would pass over the border into Sweden as well. But even Rally Ireland is probably the greatest example of this. It ran with the Shamrock flag. It was based out of Sligo, but there were a lot of stages in the north and also in the south. Now, why would I remember that? Well, because one of them has the same name as me. Another thing that we could do, and we haven't had this for a couple of years, and it's interesting because I wasn't necessarily a fan of this at the time, is mixed surface events. I would love a new San Remo. I mean, San Remo was sealed surface by the time that I was born, but I'd love for us to have something like that again. But there are other countries that have a more recent record of it, or even a longer history of it. I didn't really like Spain as a mixed service event because I thought the tarmac in Spain, being the closest to something like circuit racing, was its USP. But I know we're moving to Isla Canaria, but the actual Rally Catalunya that was mixed surface was still good. And it produced all of these freak results. And the UK, we've got a more recent record of it, but I mean, Rally GB had it in the past when you had the Stately Homes stages and you had like the ones around the Mirror Complex, which was tarmac. They were called Millbrook, the stages. And famously, that almost decided the 1998 WRC title. I mean, Poland technically could because they've got the international events, both in the ERC and the WRC, one of which is tarmac, one of which is gravel. But Białystok and I think the other one in Silesia is down near the town of Wisła, are opposite ends of the country. And I've driven from Warsaw to Kraków, and that's a long drive. I couldn't imagine us going, okay, we're going to do this and that. But I could potentially, if we allowed even greater flexibility with the WRC. And this would be to do with the timetabling and the bases. We don't necessarily need every event to be Thursday or Friday to Sunday, and I know the WRC is insistent that we have the Sunday power stage. But I know I've said we want to break with F1. F1 has done this more and more now, where you have races on Saturdays. We've had the first proper one of them in 40 odd years with Vegas, and this season opened with 2 Saturday races. But the WRC's had bigger records of history of this. I mean, Colin McRae won the 1995 World Championship on a Wednesday. It's something that we can do. I think weekend's best to have, but why not have it go through a week? In addition to this, you could detach from the hub and spoke system they have, where you have the central service park and move further away. David Richards himself, who was one of the people who proposed it for things such as marketing reasons, is actually saying it would be better if we detached from it and we had like an overnight service in this town and this town and this town. And what it would mean is we'd be able to have more of the kind of events that we had for the historic RAC. Or if you look at some old rally reviews, either that are on YouTube that you can watch, or on the WRC's website, you'll see that lots of older events, they would change where they were overnight, day after day after day. And these are just the 5 that come to mind for me right away. There are countless more that we could talk about. I mean, there are some that I've certainly thought about that I didn't have the ability to properly flesh out in this video. I mean, you could take the fact that in the past in the BRC they would just give the navigators a book of a map to go through, cut out the recce altogether and say this is how we're going to do it, and it would cut out the time needed to recce stages for an event. So this could be a topic that I revisit for another time. But these are the ones that come to mind right now as the things that would be the easiest for the WRC to implement. So let me know your thoughts on them in the comment section down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye for now.